All right, good day, everybody. This is Emar Self-Tune. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. I'm recording this on July 24th, 2020. Hope all of you are well and safe out there wherever you're listening to us. We're still in Atlanta doing our usual thing. On today's broadcast, we're going to break down the MLS's back tournament as it has been taking place so far, particularly the struggles of Atlanta United and their issues and where they go from here as far as reflecting on the tournament and beyond. We'll also discuss the Major League Baseball season opening up. We weren't able to do a show yesterday before first pitch, but I figured the day after, not much has changed as far as my predictions go. So we'll look at the opening night and our thoughts on it and predictions. And then finally, we'll go into the Gridiron Blitz, discuss training camps beginning to start up and the issues that the league and the player associations are having with it, as well as the Washington football team. Can't call them the dreaded R word anymore, but they have made a change to their team, so I have some opinions on that. But as always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the sportsinquirer.net. You'll see all of our articles and podcasts and different recordings and video and everything like that. You go there, you will see all the stuff that we're doing. You can also head to our social media platforms. We'll start off with Twitter and Instagram. Sports Inquirer, that's all one word, just one search, and you'll be able to see everything that we're doing there. Go to Facebook. We have two pages on there, The Sports Inquirer and Sports Inquirer. The Sports Inquirer, separate words. Sports Inquirer, one word. And in fact, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud. And you can do a search under The Sports Inquirer on those. And you do a search there, and you'll be able to check out everything that we're doing. Subscribe to us on those platforms, and you will get archives of our previous shows and get updates and notifications when we post new ones. And we try to do it a few days a week, so you'll have plenty to listen to and watch. Things as far as the sports world, we'll start generally and then go into specific sports. As I mentioned, it's the same. We're starting to see more sports to take place. By the time you hear this show, for many of you, Major League Baseball will be back in play. The WNBA starts officially tomorrow, and even NBA, you'll be able to, by the time you listen to this, if it's a few days after our recording, the NBA will be back in action. And that's not even including Major League Soccer, which has been already going, NASCAR, golf. We've discussed those over the past about month or so. Those sports are already back in form, including soccer as well in Europe. We're to the point where, like Bundesliga, the English Premier League, by the time you listen to this, those seasons will be over as well. So we're starting to see some sports conclude that were delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're starting to see sports that are starting up again, and their seasons were delayed, like Major League Baseball because of the pandemic, and now they're starting up. Like the WNBA and Major League Soccer technically played a few games before the pandemic really hit. But you get what I'm saying, that we're starting to see a more full sports calendar. Because the last week of July is beginning, August is going to be really hectic because we're going to have the start of the playoff NHL. I mean, bring them up as well. They start technically, I think, next week, but still, they're right in the same situation. So I'll say the first week of August, we're going to have the NBA and the NHL finishing up their regular seasons. You have the WNBA starting up their year, and NBA resuming, and that doesn't even include golf and tennis, because August brings about like the U.S. Open is coming up within the next few weeks. So you have all of that going on in August. And that's not NFL. That's conclude our show. But the NFL training camps will be in, well, we think so, as we're recording this, some form of a training camp will be taking place. So we have all of that going on in August after having a really slow June and a slower beginning of July. So we're going to go from talking no sports to almost too many sports, but that's fine. It's just we have to adjust. And as I go through all of our different sports that we're going to discuss in Major League Baseball and MLS, it's an adjustment. You just have to roll with it. And I think teams that are able to roll with the conditions and can handle them, they'll be all right. Some that can't handle it, and we have a local team here in Metro Atlanta that did not handle the adjusted season well in their sport, and that'll be our first topic when we get to it, to that specific part of our show, the original free kick, you're going to struggle. And that's just the reality of the way things are. And this is an overarching theme as well. It ties to baseball because the topics have been, how do you look at these seasons as far as asterisks, or is it a true championship? I believe it is in every single sport. Even baseball. I know it's not 162 games. They're only playing 60 regular season games. And I do, now records, as far as averages go, if someone hits 400, or if someone has an ERA below Bob Gibson's mark of, I think, 1.12 or 1.15 from 68 season, which is the lowest ERA in the live ball era for pitchers, as far as starters go, I don't think you acknowledge those records. Now, they should count towards your overall career standings as far as those go, but I don't think that should count as I said, if Mookie Betts, just naming a player, if he hits 400 this year, I still think we're going to acknowledge Ted Williams hitting 400 in 1941 as the last guy to hit 400 in a regular season. I think you can respect Mookie Betts or anyone else that does it this season, but we're not going to look at it as that was the all-time mark. Now, no one's going to hit the most RBIs or home runs or strikeouts and like that because there's just not enough games, so we don't have to worry about those. But I don't think there should be an asterisk towards any of the championships. NBA, MLS, WNBA, we go down the line. I saw Liverpool celebrate their championship and well-deserved, and broke their 30-year winless streak as far as winning a championship in the first division of the English Premier League or the FA, Football Association. They deserve to win that championship. They played the games that were scheduled. That's a championship. There's no asterisk, nothing crazy like that. And I don't think you should get extra credit, and some might want to give extra credit because of the circumstances, but I don't think it should be a situation where they don't. It's not due to a strike or a lockout. You know, you look at different championships from, go to football, we look at the Washington franchise. I got used to not calling the R word. I try to avoid it, but they've won 2 championships in the 80s during strike-shortened seasons or strike-altered seasons. The San Antonio Spurs won the 1999 NBA championship during a lockout campaign. They didn't play a full NBA regular season. But there shouldn't be asterisks towards those. I don't believe that. But if you look at those, that was labor negotiation issues, and that was self-inflicted. This is not self-inflicted. The pandemic is beyond labor negotiations between a union and the owners of the franchises in a respective pro league. Very different situation. So I don't think you should look at it as an asterisk or the fact that they only played X amount of games and they didn't win it. But I think that's how you have to look at it overall. We'll transition now into the original free kick portion of our show, which is the MLS is Back tournament. Atlanta dropped its 3rd consecutive match in a 1-0 loss to the Columbus Crew on July 21st to end its run in the MLS is Back tournament. In fact, the lone goal of the contest came in the 18th minute as Makar made a very strong kick off an assist from Venezuela to score the lone goal of the contest. So Atlanta, they went down to Orlando, participate in the tournament, lost all 3 of their matches, didn't score a goal, so they were winless against the New York Red Bulls, FC Cincinnati, and the Columbus Crew. Let's hear from Brad Guzan, just his thoughts on the loss, and then we'll break it down a little bit more. But here's Brad Guzan on the defeat.
There's no magic answer. We got to get back on the training pitch. We gotta work harder. At the same time, we got to have some real conversations, some real conversations, because this isn't something that just happened. 3 games, 6 halves of football, and we showed up for the last half. The second half was better today, but not nearly good enough for what Atlanta United stands for and the club that we've all known this club to be. So we got to get back to work because it's not even close to being good enough. You talk about identity in these 3 games, and you can even go back to the Club America game. That's not who we are as a club. That's not what we're about as a team. So there's got to be change. There's got to be there's got to be some sort of change on the field. There's got to be communication. There's got to be conversations, but then there has to be a response to that. It can't just be talk, and then get back on the field and do the same thing that we've been doing. Because it's, like I said, this didn't just happen in one game. This has happened now 4 games, and it's not good enough. It's not good enough as individuals. It's not good enough as a group, and so, there needs to be change. There needs to be the conversations that take place. Then there has to be a different product that in turn that is shown on the field.
And that was Brad Guzan discussing the defeat to Columbus in that contest. If you look at the statistics, you'll think Atlanta should have been very competitive in the match. They outshot the Crew 15-9, outshot them on target 6-3, had more corner kicks. They led in possession 55% to 45%. But you look at all of those numbers, and it did not lead to any offensive opportunities. A lot of those opportunities came in the second half when Columbus was playing a little bit more passive. They knew they would advance to the next round. You could tell they were trying to save themselves their legs a little bit, and Atlanta just was not able to get any offense going. Let's hear from Frank de Boer, the manager of the team, on the defeat.
We're depending on the result, of course, for tomorrow night, but still you want to, if you're going to leave, you want to leave with 3 points and with a positive vibe, towards Atlanta. Now, of course, everybody is disappointing in the result, and that's normal if you lose 3 times with 1-0. So, very disappointing for everybody who loves Atlanta United. The second thing about the game, I think if we look to the first half, we had really problems to press them. They did it tactically quite good the first half, and we were not capable as a team to make a solution in the game itself, and so I have to change that in the second half, and I think you saw a totally different Atlanta United in the second half, and I think if you see the second half, we deserved it at least a draw, and so that's very disappointing. If you just get 1 point, then you see, okay, you can be a little bit more satisfied, of course, and also how you turned the game around. If you see this first half was very disappointing for our side. Of course, great things, great compliments for Columbus, because it's a very good team, and we were every time chasing them, and we couldn't get really pressing on them, and that's why we changed 2 guys to really get into the pressure, and I think that it resulted directly in 2 chances of George Bello. Then the middle period, it was, some chances for us, some chances for them, but it was more equal. And then I think the last 10-15 minutes was for us again, and we had some good chances. Anton 2 times, I think 2 times a fantastic save of the goalkeeper, and so I'm very disappointed in the result, but I'm very pleased how they played the second half, and how they straightened their back, and this is where we stand for, and this is what I want to see from Atlanta United, and unfortunately we couldn't make the deserved goal.
And now it's Frank de Boer discussing the loss, and you look at the starting lineup. We'll go there and then we'll break it down. Once again, you look at the team. No Eric Remedi didn't start. No Anton Walks. They had Franco Escobar in there, who was a liability in the contest, picked up a yellow card, and was not very strong in the contest at all. You had George Bello, who is a strong talent, but just very consistent, especially on the defensive end. Jeff Lorenowitz, I don't know if it's a health issue and maybe him not being able to go a full 90 minutes or even 45, but it was in essence an elimination contest for Atlanta. And Hyman shows promise and is a talented young player, but I don't see why Lorenowitz, who has played in so many of these matches, in fact, that was his 423rd Major League Soccer contest, a regular season appearance, which is second all time. You have to have him on the field, at least in that first half, to get defensive organization going. I guess De Boer maybe figured that you have Hyman up there more of an offensive threat, but you saw Atlanta continually, despite leading the possessions and getting more shots. I said that was second half. That first half was very lackluster and defensive breakdowns, and you saw that happen in the Columbus goal. And you have to look at up front as well. Pity Martinez, Ezekiel Barco, they have possession but not doing much. Adam Jean, his name was not even mentioned in the first half at all. No shot attempts, hardly any runs to the box to get offensive opportunities going. So you look at the setup and you look at the lineup, what's going on there. John Gallagher made his first appearance with the first team, but you had him playing kind of out of position on a defensive winger when he has been playing more midfield. Even while we watch a lot of Atlanta United too, even playing more towards the net, more towards the forward, not a straight forward position, but a little bit more an attacking spot. Yet you had him playing a defensive position in the second half. You could say Atlanta did have some more structure, more organization in the second half. So maybe Gallagher did bring a little bit, and he did bring some energy in that regard. But you had him playing out of position, I think, in this situation. So you look at that, and you question the halftime adjustments. We saw they came out very flat in the New York Red Bulls contest, and also someone argue Bello hit the crossbar or the post on a shot. If that goes in, maybe things change. And they played Cincinnati, that 9 a.m. start, and were very lackluster there through the entire game. Sure, you can say that they had a takedown. I think it was Pity Martinez was taken down in the penalty box. They called the penalty, but it was reversed over VAR during offsides. What if Pity gets that penalty shot attempt? It goes in. Maybe that changes things. But they had, out of 6 halves, you saw them play about 4 or 5 different formations and different organizational tactics. That's too much adjustment. De Boer, let's hear from Frank de Boer. He discusses the trying to make adjustments and kind of the lack of in-game adjustments that the team has been showing so far this season. So here's Frank de Boer discussing that.
That's difficult, I think, and we have, like maybe when Jeff was maybe in the team, he's a guy who can really put the guys on the spot. But right now we're not able to do that, and so I was shouting, of course, from the side. But it's still difficult, when we had the water break, I could say that, and then it was already a little bit better. But in the second half, of course, in the locker room, I really could put, on the board what I expect from the guys, and there was almost no problems anymore. And but again, I have compliments to Columbus, how they, approached us, the first half, and we have to have an answer if it happens the next time. Of course, you're going to pay for it now, but it's a lesson for me, but also a lesson for our players.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing the adjustments, but the problem is that when you come into, we've seen 3-4-3s, we've seen them try to play with a false 9 with Martinez. We've seen them play the traditional lineup. Let's say we've seen them play with like 3 up front with Barco and Escobar, and Jean playing the kind of the striker position. And you just look at the reality of the situation. Where, as I mentioned, they went scoreless in all 3 of the matches at the MLS's back tournament. First time in franchise history, they have lost 3 consecutive matches. This is a team in year 4, and the first time they've lost 3 matches in a row on any level. And Frank de Boer did discuss that, just the expectations of the franchise and what that means.
We are Atlanta United, and we supposed to win games. We want to entertain our audience, and that's our DNA. So and we have to understand that's our responsibility. And even though maybe it wasn't the perfect preparation for this tournament, we have to have the pressure to win all games, and that's if you are involved in a club like Atlanta United, then you have to feel that pressure, and we feel that always. A draw is like a loss. So two losses, hurts of course for everyone, especially our supporters, but also our players. We don't want it, and we want to change that quickly.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing the loss or the expectations of the franchise. It is Atlanta United, but you also, I mentioned all those players. Who's missing from I'll say even the inaugural team. I'll go way back with it. You don't have Julian Gressel, contract issues that really came down to a difference of about $100,000 if you break down the minutia of it. And the timing of the virus and a free agency, and they had to deal with the labor negotiations. They did it was bad timing in that regard because they couldn't offer him the extension or the money that he demanded because of the labor contract. So that was kind of bad luck there. But still, there was a way that he could have had that money. Leandro Gonzalez Perez, and you see him now back with Miami. With Inter Miami, the squad there in MLS. He was your Miles Robinson's. I think he's a future backline player for the U.S. national team, and is going to be a best 11 contender in the future. But Gonzalez Perez was the best defender for Atlanta overall in the team's tenure. You lose him. Miguel Almiron, obviously your offensive talent. You lose. Well, he moves on to Newcastle in the English Premier League. You go down the line. Darlington Nagbe, who at times, him and De Boer, even last preseason, you could tell there were tension there. But he was a steadying force in the midfield. Good transitional player. You saw his presence in that Columbus contest. I think he completed all 20-plus passes in the first half. Just very subtle, dominating performance from Darlington Nagbe. You look at the front line, even a Brandon Vasquez, who's now with FC Cincinnati, who was a reserve forward for Atlanta. You could see him being a much better option than Adam Jean, but obviously Joseph Martinez, and that's obviously the biggest caveat of missing players. You look at him being missing, yes, he scores so many goals for the team. He's the best forward in Major League Soccer. I don't look at Carlos Vela as a forward per se, like Martinez. Vela may be the best player, but Martinez, as far as scoring, he produces. I think he scored 35 to 37% of all the goals of Atlanta United in the history of the franchise. So that shows the amount of presence that he has. But I think even with all of that, where is the urgency? Where is the organization? I don't think it's a situation where you plug in Joseph Martinez and the team is going to start winning games again. I don't think it becomes like that. So where does the team go? And Frank de Boer discussed overcoming the adversity and trying to figure this situation out.
I was, of course, not pleased with the result against Red Bull, but I think I think we deserved it also a draw, at least, against them. We had some good play, I think, against them. Since also to the record, but also before that, they really played deep, and we didn't really have an answer, how really to create chances in that. I think that the heat also didn't help really, that people taking initiative, they think, okay, yeah, I have to keep this, 90 minutes long, if I spill my energy, right away, what happens, after 30 minutes. So I think it's a very difficult situation for players when you play in this kind of circumstances. And when 10 men, it was more, of course, surviving. And I think we did quite well, especially first half. The second half, they did a little bit different, and then you saw, and then they scored a goal, and then you have to force it, of course. But
we already played with 10 men, and then yeah, it's always difficult. So Cincinnati, I'm of course not pleased with the way how we played. Of course, the red card didn't help either, but yeah, I think also the heat, for both teams. I think we have to cancel those kind of games because nobody benefits for that. But to come back to your question about motivating the players, and again, we have a small thing to grab on still, and so we have to try to get that, and first of all, get a good performance, and try to play the game that we want to see, how Orlando plays, dominate and create chances. And again, against the Red Bull, we had like 20 crosses, but maybe not the danger that we expect from those crosses, but still we were there, and that's positive. We had some good opportunities also, good attacks, and maybe we give maybe two or three two chances too much away, and but that's also the way they play. And so first game I was, like medium positive about how we played, and the second game, yeah, just during circumstances, and also, yeah, how they played, we really were struggling, to create chances against the team who really played deep, and so we have to find an answer for that for the next time.
And now it's Frank de Boer discussing the adversity and is de Boer's job on the line? I don't think it is. Yes, I mentioned all the inconsistencies with the lineup and just the lack of adjustments. But I think in this situation, firing de Boer will be counterproductive. You go back to last season, this first year, a slow start, but they still were able to win two cups, the Campeones Cup and the U.S. Open Cup. So they won two cups there, able to make it advance in the postseason in the playoffs. And if you take a deep breath, which is hard to do for a lot of Atlanta United supporters, they are 2-3 on the season. Not great. And you have this team that wins a lot, but you won your first two games of the season. You had a really bad run in Orlando. You don't throw that all away right now just yet. Now this offseason, I think there'll be a lot of questions, and we'll go down the line there. You get questions with what you're going to do with Barco and Pity Martinez. Do they stick around with a unique transfer window? What do you do? Do you look at Guzan, maybe end of the line for him? But all of those things I think will be addressed in the future as far as where the team goes. You can't question some of the players that have been brought in. Have they been able to produce at the level of their predecessors? As I said, you look at Hyndman, you look at Mo Adams, a Brooks Lennon, Adam Jean. Are those players producing at a high level? Have they underperformed, underdelivered? I think it's a mixed bag with each of them. I think you'll say each of them have been average in their time. But does that mean that de Boer gets fired or released for that? Or do you look further up the chain at Atlanta United? We'll have to see. But Frank de Boer did address the speculation of his job and his job security.
Everybody is disappointed, I'm the first one who's really disappointed, and I only can say, I will give always my best, and I'm going to continue that until the end. And I know that I can change, this vibe that we have right now, and to a winning vibe. We showed that last season when we started quite rusty. And I'm convinced with the players that we have that we really can change. And again, if we see the second half, that is what I want to see from our team, and we're going to continue in that.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing the situation with the team and where things are. What's next for the team? Obviously, they're out of the MLS is Back tournament, and we'll break down the knockout round in a few minutes. But de Boer, what do you do? Do you have the team back on the pitch today, as we're recording this on July 24th? Do you have them wait a week? We don't know when the next set of games are going to take place. The final of the MLS is Back tournament is on August 11th. So at the earliest, you have to figure that the next set of regular season games are going to be August 18th, August 20th. So you're looking at almost a month without any competitive soccer because the Open Cup is not taking place. The CONCACAF Champions League is not taking place. So you have a team that just lost 3 matches in a very uninspired fashion, sitting down for almost a month, or at least a month, maybe even more, because we don't know what the situation is with the pandemic and when this regular season matches will resume after the MLS is back tournament. How do you handle all of that as a franchise from a coaching perspective? And Frank de Boer did address that.
Guys will have a couple of days off. That's normal, you know. We are a long time in the bubble, so. And then we start ramping up and be ready, you know, what's going to happen. We don't know the plan of the MLS right now, so we have to wait. But, you know, we can still, you know, practice a lot what we want, playing different systems and what we expect from them. So we have enough time. You know, I think we need also the time, you know, to really train what we want to see and get confidence when it starts up again.
And to wrap things up from the MLS's back tournament from Atlanta, let's hear from Brad Guzan and just disappointment of the team of their performance in Orlando.
It's frustration. You know, after the first game, we talked about what playing for this club means and what when you step on the field with an Atlanta United crest on your shirt, you're not just representing the club, you're representing the city of Atlanta, and you're representing all of our fans. We've set the bar so high over the last couple of years, and so now to go through what we're going through, you can talk about experienced players, you know, but there's also inexperienced players on the field, and it's the role of experienced players to help those guys along. It's the role of those younger players to pick up information quickly, you know, learn on the job, so to speak, and we have to get better. There's a huge level of frustration, disappointment, anger, because this isn't what Atlanta United is about. This isn't who we are as a club, and yeah, so it's not a good feeling in the locker room at the minute. Regardless of coach, manager, players, you know, in this business, players come and go, managers come and go. It's the job of us as players that are here, that are part of this club, to go out and perform to a certain level. You know, that question isn't for us as players. That's obviously. Again, that's not for us. That's for other people. Our job is to take that information on board and try and go and execute what's being relayed to us as players. So yeah, I don't think that question is particularly you know, for us as players. We've got to go and take the information that we're getting and try and go and get wins.
And now is Brad Guzan discussing his disappointing performance of the team. As I said, we'll discuss Atlanta United a lot further. I'm assuming they'll be back on the training grounds at some point. But yeah, that was just a very uninspired effort, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't think there's a player on the roster or currently out there, unless Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi or you know, someone else, or Mo Salah or Virgil van Dijk, someone like that is on the open market coming to Atlanta. I don't know what you're going to do as far as the improvements go as bringing in a new player. Maybe the team will get home and just deal with it as far as their disappointment and what's going to go on from there. The rest of the tournament, it has been interesting watching the MLS's back tournament. It's probably the most Major League Soccer I've watched in a condensed period in a very long time. And you have some teams that, it depends on your perspective of what you're trying to do as a franchise. You look at a Cincinnati, a team that in its MLS tenure is on coach number 4, at least coach number 3, in less than 2 years. And they advanced, and they're playing in the quarters against around the 16. They're going to play Portland on July 28th. Them being in this is tremendous for them. But then you look at a franchise like LAFC, won the Support Shield for best record or most points last season. People thought, okay, that they're going to struggle as far as Novella in the tournament. They've shown themselves very well. Look at Columbus, a team going through a new coach, new tactics. They've come out very strong. Orlando, they play Montreal in the round 16, much maligned. They're kind of the de facto home team, and they've looked very good, by their standards. So I think the tournament, the play has improved as we expected it to. Those 9 a.m. games have been rough to watch, and I think I don't think they'll ever have an MLS is Back tournament again, but playing at 9 a.m. was really rough on the guys, and you saw the quality of play there. It got better when they played the evening matches. But I think the teams you have to look at as far as major contenders to win this thing, LAFC, I think, can bang their way to a lot of goals. Their defense is still suspect, and I think that's why teams like Seattle and Kansas City will always be better than in the West than the LAFC. Now, LAFC may be able to score a lot of goals and just, as I make their way to the trophies and success in that regard. But I think in this type of format, especially with that matchup against Seattle in their round of 16, that's going to be very tricky for them. But I think that you have to look at them as a strong favorite. I said Columbus, I've been very impressed by their play. I think a Naby acquisition, you have Zardes up front. That's just a very organized, tactical team. Toronto's been interesting. We talked about a key earlier, 5 goals in the tournament, including a hat trick. The American striker that's 20 years old, very intriguing for U.S. soccer fans, but also for Toronto. Josie Altidore, we saw him play the final minutes of their last match in group play. Yeah, and they played them together. So you have those two forwards going up front. That's very intriguing for Toronto in that regard. So but I think that's what you look at these teams, and some have come out very strong, and some not so much. And Atlanta is on that end. The Red Bulls, I think, had a disappointing run in the tournament. They have a lot of questions to answer as well. Even the Galaxy, they had a chance to beat Houston last night. I think that goal at the end would not have gotten it. They ended up tying Houston 1-1. That goal would not have advanced them to the next round, but they had a really bad loss against LAFC. And I know you're saying no Chicharito, no Dos Santos, but still a lot of questions as far as Los Angeles winless in the MLS season so far, and that's kind of similar to Atlanta. The Galaxy going winless through their first 5 matches. That's not the standards that they like to set. So those are my thoughts on the MLS is Back tournament. Been very exciting, though, very intriguing watching soccer at 9 a.m. in the morning. We'll transition to Beanball and talk about Major League Baseball. Opening night was yesterday on July 23rd. The Yankees defeated the Nationals in a shortened game, and then the Dodgers defeated the Giants in their opener. Let's talk about the broadcast setup first. We've only seen ESPN so far. We haven't seen Fox yet as far as a national broadcast goes. I don't mind the crowd noise. I think that's okay. I did not like seeing the cutout fans in the background, the Dodgers game behind home plate. I thought that was very distracting. And I know I guess their fans could pay for it and all that stuff, so it's a money generator. I understand it. But I thought it was very distracting seeing all of those cutouts not even moving. We're used to seeing people behind home plate and that camera angle when you're looking in on the hitter. But at least people are moving around. They don't look like dead zombies. I mean, that was very creepy. I did not like that at all. I think the crowd, it's good that they have the music playing, as far as walk-up songs and the PA announcer. You get some consistency in that regard. The broadcasters, look, they're professionals. They'll deal with it. So I don't need people from A-Rod to Chipper Jones to Rick Sutcliffe and all those guys and Matt Veskurgen and complain. They're not complaining. They're doing a good job. But it's not the 1950s. The way these setups go, they're at the studio. Yes, they're not at the ballpark. And baseball is one of those sports you do like to look up from the press box area so you can see the defensive layout You can see some things going on in that regard. Not as important as football. Football's even when football broadcasts come around, we'll break that down as well. But baseball, you can kind of do remotely in the fact that if you have some camera angles, if you have one above the press box, which I'm sure they do, you can see the defensive formation before the pitch. So you can see that going. And you're really watching from TV. A lot of these guys, they also watch from TV. It is weird. And when you go, I'm an expert at this because I've worked a lot of games. I was sports media relations director at a college. So I kind of know how these broadcasts work. But at a professional level, in those big stadiums, which are Major League Baseball and NFL, you'll actually see the broadcasters when they're doing the broadcast, they're watching the monitor. They're not actually watching the game take place. Now, if you go to some minor league parks or college baseball stadiums, it's a lot smaller. You'll see the guys looking out onto the field because you're a lot closer to the field. Your vision is a little clearer as far as things go. But if you've been to a major league ballpark, and well, not even the press box, just upper deck, which is the equivalent of the press box, you can see it's a very long way to look down onto the ball field to see things going on. Football is the same deal. And football is even more activity because in football, you have motion, you have guys moving around before the snap and audibles and everything like that. So a lot of these guys are used to, in some way, watching the game and calling a game from the monitor. So that part of it, I don't think is as big of a hindrance or an issue as you would think. But I think that I like the setup's fine, the stadium ambiance. I don't mind the fake piped-in crowd noise. I think that the broadcast will be okay. Now, as I said, if you're a player, it's different. But a lot of these guys have played in front of empty stadiums. Now, they haven't in a long time because they're professionals. And once you get to the Major League level, even the worst teams in the league, and if you have a bad day game and you're the worst team in the league, you'll have a few thousand people in the stands. So it's not deadly silent or quiet as it is. But these guys played high school ball. They played high school ball. They played college ball, minor leagues. They've played some of those games at the businessman specials on a Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon where there literally are 500 people in the stands. So they're used to playing in silence in that regard. And the silliness I will say that the silly parts about it have been, look, if you test negative for the virus and you go through the protocols, just play it regular. High five your teammate, give them a fist bump. You could give them a hug. I think it's silly the fact that they can't do all of these things. Once you test positive, play the game like you play the game normally. That's why I don't get in that regard, especially among your teammates. I think it's a little bit silly, and I think it's overkill now because you have to really enforce the rules and make sure you have all discipline organized in there. But a few weeks from now, you're going to start seeing everything loosen up in that regard. So that part's not bad as far as seeing the players, and it's good to see baseball in action. Good seeing Giancarlo Stanton hit a long home run. Good seeing Max Scherzer pitch and Garrett Cole and all of that stuff. It's good to see all these guys play on the field. I like the expanded playoffs. What they end up deciding to do for the 2020 season is 8 teams from each league is going to make the playoffs. Each division winner, there are 3 divisions. There's the East, the Central, and the West, in the AL and the NL. So each division winner is going to be in the playoffs. Each second place team is going to be in the playoffs. And then the best 2 records from the rest of the leagues. Expanded playoffs are good for several reasons, especially in this format. When you keep everyone involved. Even if you get off to a 5-10 start, you realize, say, we could find our way into the playoffs, we get on a good run. There's going to be nothing worse than a team that's 5-10 and saying, you know what, we're not going to make the playoffs, and they're going to mail it in. You don't want that. 2, it gets more players involved. If you're not the Yankees, you're not the Dodgers, you're not the Astros, some of these blue blood teams that you know are going to be in the playoffs, you say to yourself, hey, we can finish, and at this stage, out of 60 games, I think 30 to 32 games may get you in the playoffs. We've seen the mathematics. Statisticians have been looking at it. But I think if you get to above 500, which is about 32 and 28, that may get you into the postseason. That's not too hard for any team, even if you're the lowly Marlins or Tigers, or Orioles, teams that have been beaten down over the past few years with some bad records. Almost any team can do that. So I think that's good. It's good for the players and it's good for the owners. I think the estimate will end up being around $300 million extra in the playoff pool. That goes to the owners. And the owners, and I know players are very untrusting of the owners, but we've seen in the past, every time more money is put into the owners' pockets, as far as if they increase TV contracts, things along those lines, it trickles down back to the players. And now the pandemic and the salaries and things like that, and I'll get to Mookie Betts in a moment. I don't know if you're going to see this free agency period is going to be very unique because after the season's over, a lot of owners are going to have to recalibrate their finances, but they'll have more money to work with an expanded playoffs. I don't think it's going to stick around in the long run. Just like I don't think the DH is going to stick around for both leagues. I personally would like to see a decision made. I like the DH personally in both NL and AL. But and then I hear these baseball traditionalists, I don't want to see the DH. I like to see the pitcher hit. I don't like seeing it within your own league having two different sets of rules. That makes no sense. And you have one side of your league playing with, I said it's completely different. Just choose one or the other. If you want to limit the DH completely, that's fine. If you want to have DH completely in, that's okay too. But I think for this point of the season, or for this 2020 campaign, I think the DH in both leagues is fine. We haven't seen the three relievers yet. Well, three. Calm down. Each reliever faces three batters. That's interesting. We'll see how that goes. Haven't had extra innings yet with the runner on second base. As I said, it's going to be a very different year. And that includes the broadcast itself. As far as predictions go, everyone likes to do their predictions in their columns and all their write-ups. I'll do it as well. And my one caveat is with all these predictions, if you have like a Juan Soto situation with the Nationals, day before, we find out hours before the first game of the season, Juan Soto, their best field player, he has the coronavirus, and he might be out. He might be playing by this weekend, or he might be out for the next few weeks if he has to quarantine and all that stuff. So whatever your favorite team is, or you look at your squads, your big player. We saw here in Atlanta with Freddie Freeman. He had the coronavirus. I guess he's passed it and went through the protocols. But what if that happened today or next week? Or if the Braves make the playoffs and it happens before they start the postseason and their best player, Freddie Freeman, arguably the best player, he gets the virus and he's out. And if it happens during the playoffs, and you have to be out 2 weeks, that could be the rest of the season if they get eliminated. So I make these predictions with the caveat of none of these players may get hurt or things like that. So you understand what I'm saying. I think the AL is relatively straightforward as far as division winners. I'm going to stick with the chalk. Yankees in the East, Twins in the Central, Astros in the West. My second place division teams, I'm taking the Rays in the East, the Cleveland franchise in the Central. I'm going to take Oakland in the West. Oakland always seems to find a way to get enough wins to be a postseason threat. And Houston as well. I think all this stuff going on has been very good for them. We know spring training was all about their distractions of their cheating and their manager not being there anymore. And we all know the story of their transgressions over the previous 2-3 years. You're not going to have fans in the stands, so they have to deal with the heckling. You have a shorter regular season, which really works out for them. They've made some long postseason runs. The players can be fresh and healthy. Dusty Baker, their manager, I think is a very good guy, or the right guy in this type of scenario. He's a veteran. He's been there, done that, seen it all in the game. So I think he'll be solid in that regard. And I think they're under the radar because of the Yankees and the Dodgers. Everyone's talking about them. Both teams had big off seasons. Cole signing with the Yanks, Mookie Betts being traded to the Dodgers. Everyone's talking about those squads, and the Astros are under the radar. They're still a very, very good team, and I think they're going to be major contenders in the American League. As far as my two wild card teams, I guess you could call them, or two teams with the best record, it's very random. I'm gonna take the Angels. Rendon, Mike Trout. You get a full season of Ohtani pitching and hitting. I'm gonna take a chance on there. Pujols might have a little bit left on tread on his tires. Might have a little bit left to go. I'm gonna take the Angels. Why not? Trout has to make the postseason at some point. I mean, I know he's been there once before, but if he's not, this is the best chance for him to. They can muster together 30 wins with that roster. And I'm going to take the White Sox as well, Chicago. A lot of young guys have to develop and build, and there's always a random team. And I just look at the rest of the American League. Who's left? Toronto, they got a lot. They got young talent, but we don't know if they're going to be playing how many home games. They can't play in Canada, so I think they're out. The Orioles are bad. You look at the Royals are bad. You go down the line. You look at a lot of bad baseball. Seattle, they're not very good. Texas, new stadium, I get that, but they're in a big rebuild. Why not Chicago? The White Sox still have a little bit rebuild themselves, but they have some young guys that they've been grooming over the past few years. I'll take a flyer on the White Sox. Yankees win the AL though. I think they're going to mash their way to so many wins, and with Garrett Cole as their lead dog as far as pitching, I think they just find their way to win the American League. National League, a little bit chalk as well, relatively speaking. Braves win this East. The Cubs win the Central. Dodgers win the West. I think those are the most talented teams in the National League. Braves got two top line pitchers, I think, in Fried and Soroka. Now their depth is questionable with the rest of their starters. I have concerns. Cole Hamels, he's hurt. He may not be playing. Fultonavich, he's dealing with some arm. I think his velocity is down. He had a really rough go at it in their, I guess you call it spring training game or summer training game against the Marlins. Where did they go? Did they go right as a starter? Where did they go? So I think they're going to have problems, but offensively, you give me Acuna and Freeman in that lineup, and Ozzie Albies, they're gonna put together some solid numbers. So I think they'll find a way to win that division. Cubs, I know new manager David Ross, never managed before, but still, that's a team. Kyle Schwarber could be a DH and not be a defensive liability. I think he's gonna have a pretty solid, strong run. Chris Bryant, when you look at that team, just the talent there, I think they just have enough to win the division. Dodgers, we've talked about with Betts, Bellinger, with Seager, Turner. They're stacked. They're the most talented team maybe in all of baseball. And then pitching wise, I know Kershaw had the scratch from the opening game yesterday with the back issue. That's concern on any pitcher of his age and a back. That's bad. But I think you have Walker Buehler, you have Alex Wood. They have enough to get by there. As far as the second place teams, I'll take the Nationals in the East. I think the Nationals also benefited from, when I say benefit, but they can take advantage of the situation of the virus that most of these teams, after they win the World Series, it's a long season, postseason, short off season, having to go right back into playing. They've had a lot of rest. Scherzer and Strasburg, they should be ready to go, and their arms should be rested and fresh. And the Soto situation, I think he'll be back within a week or two. I think they'll have enough talent. Losing Rendon hurts, but I think they'll find a way to at least be a playoff team in some way. Milwaukee, we have Christian Yelich, and that's a strong squad. I'll take them. I'll take the Rockies as far as my second place team. I think they'll mash their way, kind of like LAFC and Major League Soccer. A lot of offense, pitching not so much, or defense. But in this 60 games, I think they find a way to do it. And as far as the best records of the other teams, Similar exercise to the AL. Who do you really want to choose? The Marlins, I keep saying that they can maybe do it, but they're not going to be able to do it. Philadelphia is intriguing, and I think I put the Phillies. I'm making a late change here. I had the Mets as one of my teams, but with their starting pitching outside of DeGrom, we have Syndergaard's out for the year with the Tommy John surgery. We have Marcus Stroman. He has a torn muscle in his calf. I don't like that at all. Look, I love Alonso. He's going to mash a lot of home runs. And offensively, Cespedes being a DH is a good thing as far as him staying off of his feet and not being in the outfield as far as wearing down. But I think I'll take the Phillies. I think Bryce Harper finds a way to get him in there. And the Padres. I'll take the Padres as well. Machado. They have Tatis, who's going to be a superstar in this league. I think I'll just take those teams. I'll take the Padres and the Phillies to be the other two teams as far as the other best records, because the Reds are intriguing. Yes, I see the Reds. I know Bauer and Sonny Gray and some of the other young talent, Envado, a consistent first baseman. I think the Reds are intriguing. The Giants aren't very good at all as far as that goes. You just go down the list of some of the other teams. Pittsburgh, they're not very strong. Cardinals are intriguing because it's the Cardinals, and they always seem to find a way to be a relative contender. So I think the NL actually might have some more intrigue at the bottom of their league. I think the AL just has some really, really bad teams that are really going through it, like Baltimore and Kansas City and Detroit, even Seattle, that is really bad teams that are still trying to figure it out. I think the NL might be a little bit more intriguing. And then finally, I think the Dodgers win the West, and Yankees beat the Dodgers in the World Series. So that's who I have winning the World Series. So we'll see what happens with baseball. We'll talk about it a lot more as we go through. Finally, wrap up on the Gridiron Blitz. Training camp's upon us, and negotiations are still going on trying to figure it out. Here's the thing about football that, at least the NFL side, college to a lesser degree, but kind of the same. They look at it as far as we'll plow our way through this pandemic and we're going to not ignore everything, but things are going to work out by the time we get to training camp and by the time we get to preparing for the fall season. The reality is that's not happening. It's a trickle-down effect or trickle-up effect. We've already seen the high schools here in the state of Georgia. Schools are not going to, kids aren't going to be in class at least the beginning part of the year. Now, maybe in October or November, or maybe at the new calendar year in January, we don't know. But at least for the first part of the year, at least in August, they're not going to be in class. What does that mean? You can't have kids practicing their respective sports if they're not going to school. So the high school football season has been delayed by a few weeks. Do you translate that to college? You cannot have an empty campus yet having your volleyball players and your football players on campus training. They're not professionals. So we've seen a lot of delays in the fall sports for college, specifically football, volleyball, cross country. Now it translates to the NFL. If you're not going to be able to open training camp, and I think the Texans and the Chiefs open up on Monday, which is July 27th. If they can't go, then you got to look at the other teams. How does that work out for them? I know here in Atlanta, they report, I think, later next week. But still, what do you do with that? Now, the good part about training camp, or an advantage, is that once the players report, they usually stay on campus. They treat it like training camp is you report. They have dorms or hotel rooms on the facility or near the facility, and that's where the players stay. They don't usually go back home to their families. So you can kind of have a little bit of a bubble in some ways, like the WNBA and the NBA are doing right now. So that's a little bit of a help as far as once they report to camp. But what's the game plan? What's the scenario? We've seen the NFLPA talk about they want daily testing, which is kind of counterproductive And it does tie into societal issues where how is it that people are waiting in lines for hours and hours, first frontline workers or people that are your beautician or your auto mechanic or someone that works at your local grocery that are in the middle of it every day interacting with people. They take a test, they get delayed, some of them get it immediately, some have to wait a few days. Yet these professional athletes in college too, they take a test, they know immediately, and they're getting daily tests, and the resources are being funneled to them, and they're getting. And we know it's professional sports, and they get advantages over regular folk, but it's a little egregious, I think, to have daily testing with the NFL players when you have the struggles of everyday folks that are, and wherever you're listening to our show, I'm sure you've seen the car lines or the long lines outside of buildings, people that need to get tested for whatever reason. So I think that's where you are dealing with all of that stuff and the realities of things. But what it ties into, and to bring it back together, is that we're dealing with all these outside issues of how to handle the coronavirus and testing and social distancing. And you're going to have all these guys gather together and play football, which is the most physical, interactive sport that you can think of as far as guys tackling each other, touching each other, spitting, bleeding, every bodily fluid you can think of on each other, sweating, all that on each other. And we're just going to assume that they're all going to be okay. We'll see what happens with the league, and they have to figure it out. And as far as the Washington football franchise, we know they had to move away from the R word as far as their team name. I get that. And as I've said before in our show, if Dan Snyder, owner of the Washington team, was more proactive, he could have made double or triple the money with the name change. He could have made a big ceremony of it. And now they're coming out with the Washington football franchise and the numbers on the helmet and not using the logo anymore. I get all of that. But it's could have been done so much better. I think the name is fine for now. You're going to see them have a mascot at some point because it's in the NFL, you don't really go by just the city. It's not like soccer where you go by a city or a nickname, things like that, just directly. So I think that's where they'll call themselves the Red Wolves or the Tigers or Kings or whatever name you could think of. But for now, they're the Washington football franchise. They kept the same colors. That was smart. And they should keep the same colors. The colors aren't offensive. That's fine. So that's what you're going to see them do, I think, for the rest of this season. And the next offseason, in 2021, you'll see a new name, new logo. I don't think you'll see the colors because the people are really prideful of Washington, that the fans, the supporters of that team. I think the colors stay the same. And that's the colors are cool. They're fine. But I think that's what you're going to see next year. They will go with a name or whatever you can think of. And that concludes today's show. Thanks for listening. And when we do our next show, we'll have some more actual ball games to talk about in baseball and have some NBA to discuss and WNBA. We didn't touch on it on the show today, but by the time we do our next show, they'll have some actual games take place. So I'll have my thoughts and reflections on how they're handling that. And as always, want to follow everything that we're doing, head to thesportsinquirer.net. Go to our social media platforms on Twitter and Instagram under Sports Inquirer, Facebook, The Sports Inquirer, and subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud. So until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.